Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. I'm so glad to have you here. It is really a great day because my guest is going to provide some amazing solutions for you. Dr. Joe Tatta is a transformational pain expert and the #1 best-selling author of Heal Your Pain Now, the revolutionary program to reset your brain and body for a pain-free life, and the host of the Healing Pain podcast. Lots of P's in there. His podcast and website are a community where patients and practitioners can discover integrative strategies for healing pain naturally. As a doctor of physical therapy, board-certified nutrition specialist, and functional medicine practitioner, Dr. Joe specializes in treating persistent pain caused by musculoskeletal, metabolic, autoimmune, and emotional trauma. His mission is to create a new paradigm around treating persistent pain and reverse our global pain epidemic. Wow. So you can see why I'm so psyched to have him here. People who are dealing with weight issues, we've beat up our bodies. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. The yo-yo dieting syndrome and emotional eating and the binge eating and starving and all the craziness around, food addiction takes its toll, doesn't it? Our bodies are like, this is not fair. We don't like this, and we are breaking down. So that's what happens, and that's why it's so important to have Dr. Joe here today to talk to us about pain, because, not only do we create pain by emotionally eating, but we also, use pain as an excuse to emotionally eat, don't we? We comfort ourselves like, boo-hoo, I feel bad, let me comfort myself with my favorite carbs and sugar and fat. So, and then we're on the road again to more pain. So that's what we're dealing with, and I've got just the guy for you to talk to us about it. So welcome, Dr. Joe.
Thanks, Tricia. It's great to be here with you today. So excited.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's just really, congratulations on your book. I'm going to hold it up here. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's inspirational, just looking at the cover.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of people create pain, obesity creates pain. So let's start there and talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy way to step into that, the easy way to step into our conversation is, of course, when you're in pain, you don't feel like moving, you don't want to move, and many, many times you stop moving. So, we know that when you have pain, whether it's joint pain, whether it's autoimmune pain, whether it's musculoskeletal pain of any kind, that really what happens is what's called fear avoidance. So from having that pain day in and day out, week after week, month after month, and sometimes year after year, from having that pain, you say to yourself, it terrifies me to move. I don't want to move anymore because when I move, I just start to hurt. So the last thing I want to do is move. And you start to avoid, of course, exercise, you avoid going to the gym, you avoid the yoga class, all the things that you know are healthy for you. But eventually you avoid simple things like just going for a walk or doing your housework or being intimate with your partner. And you really start avoiding just the basic everyday activities of daily living that are essential to our life, but they're also essential to our health and our happiness. So those fear avoidance behaviors are so important. And sometimes just reintegrating with healthy movement, of course, is a way to make your body healthy, to make yourself stronger. But it's also a way to kind of send this signal of confidence that once you can do a little bit of movement, that you start to develop confidence. And when confidence develops, fear starts to dissipate. And as fear dissipates, pain starts to go away because there's a really intimate relationship between the things you fear, and movement being one of them, versus how much pain you have. And sometimes just fearing, just thinking about a movement like walking or going to the gym can actually make pain increase. So there's a really intimate relationship between your brain and your body when it comes to pain.
Interesting. Okay, there's a lot going on there that doesn't meet the eye clearly. And then obviously it's such a vicious cycle, isn't it? We don't want to move our bodies. We're afraid of moving our bodies, so we don't. So we literally exacerbate the pain because we're not getting the healing that we need.
That's true. When you don't move, obviously you start to put weight on, and that weight, most of that weight that we start to put on is around our midsections that, fat, so to speak, we can actually grab with our hands that we don't like, and we kind of say, I wish this would go away. And we look at it, we traditionally looked at that fat as like the spare tire that it's sitting here, it's like dead weight, or maybe it's putting extra pressure on my joints, such as my low back or my knees or my hips. But the really interesting thing is that it's not dead weight, that belly fat that sits around your midsection, around your belly button, is actually this like inflammatory factory that's pumping out inflammatory chemicals all day long. And those inflammatory chemicals get circulated around your entire body. And they can be deposited into your tendons, your cartilage, your ligaments, your joints, your muscles. And that's what creates that chronic inflammatory response throughout your entire body. So this concept of like this dead belly weight is not really true. And we need to start looking at it as, okay, there's something going on here on more of a metabolic level. And what are the things we can do to solve that? So not only do I lose weight and I look great, but I also decrease inflammation. And with that, inflammation goes down, your pain will go down as well.
And is most pain inflammation?
Some is. I mean, if you look at, obviously, our obesity rates are significant in the country and globally, as well as our autoimmune rates. The amount of autoimmune disease that we have is significant as well. We probably have about 50 million Americans who have an autoimmune disease. And with that, it's a chronic inflammatory response. So we need to look at, obviously, diet as a way to heal that inflammation. But pain isn't always inflammatory. There is a time, and we can talk about this as we go further into this conversation, there is a time when inflammation is not the root cause of pain. And with that type of pain, we need to look more toward the brain and the nervous system as why this pain is being created. So pain is very complex. It's what they call multifactorial. So part of what I do with patients and what I do in my book, Heal Your Pain Now, is I start to kind of tweeze out what is the root cause of your pain, whether it's inflammatory related or whether it's kind of more what I call the brain and pain related.
Okay, great. And I want to circle back to this idea of the belly fat because it's a big deal. It's such a big deal. And you're right. I mean, it used to I always had a belly and I still do. It's just like the way my body's made. I just like have this roll. It's unavoidable. It gets bigger or smaller depending on my weight. But it was big growing up when I was 50 pounds overweight. And so I would hold it in my stomach or hold it in my hands and think I could just slice it off because it's just fat. It's just straight up fat. That's all it is. So let's talk about belly fat and kind of the science behind how we get, I guess it's metabolic syndrome is what you're really referring to, and how that comes about, because I think it's a really important point.
Yeah, so metabolic syndrome is this syndrome that the average American has, and it's that kind of spectrum where you're somewhere between obesity and diabetes. Some people like to call it diabesity. Mm-hmm. And either through too much calorie consumption, through hormonal imbalance, through stress, through lack of physical activity, from eating the wrong foods, which are nutrient poor instead of nutrient dense foods, or having a diet that is lacking in essential nutrients. Oftentimes, that combination of factors can lead to the production of that visceral fat, or what they call belly fat, basically. And that belly fat, like I said before, is very inflammatory. So we look, of course, we look to, okay, what type of foods are you eating? If you're eating the standard American diet, which is very inflammatory, it's high in simple processed sugars, it's devoid of many times healthy fats. So we know that there are certain fats that are definitely harmful, but there are many, many fats out there that are very healthy. And oftentimes it's deficient in some of those nutrients. And when you lack essential nutrients, you can kind of put your body into this metabolic pause. So you want your metabolism to kind of be cranking along like a well-oiled machine. So the gears of that machine are moving all day long. When you're not eating the right diet, when that diet is inflammatory, those gears come to a halt. And your body says, you know what, I don't know what to do with these extra calories, but I'm just going to put them right here because I'm not quite sure what to do with them. So oftentimes with diet, nutrition, nutritional supplements, we're learning how to send a very important signal on the deepest metabolic and cellular level to your body and how you should use the food and how you should use the nutrients in the most efficient way. Okay,
that's a great explanation. So important. So it's not just fat.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, that's incredible. Tell me, let's stay on the diet, conversation here, and tell me more about the healthy fat versus the unhealthy fats. Don't just tell me, tell everybody.
Yeah, I mean, many women, especially if you're like my mom was on this kind of diet back in the 80s and 90s where everything was low fat.
Right.
So there was no fat and everything said low fat or no fat or minimal fat or fat taken out. And the truth is that many of those fats are anti-inflammatory. So, of course, we think first about the omega-3 fatty acids, which you can find in cold water fish. You can find them in some nuts and seeds. So these fats are anti-inflammatory. They're supposed to be in your diet. So when we look at the Mediterranean diet is probably the best example of it. When we look at Mediterranean cultures, oftentimes they're eating these fats 3 to 6 times a week. So they're a really good part of their diet, and oftentimes they're in very, very high levels. And what's interesting about fat is it's actually really satiating. So fat keeps you satiated for longer periods of time. So at each meal, you should have some type of healthy fat in your diet. You can find it also in avocado. You can find it in olive oil, nuts and seeds. I love people, like avocados whole. There's also great avocado oil, which I love to put on salads and things like that. I've also put it in shakes. But when you have the right amount of fat, it satiates you. So you're not hungry. You stay satiated for a longer period of time. So when you have breakfast, you don't feel like you're starving by the time 10 o'clock rolls around. Or if you have lunch at noon, you don't feel like you're starving by the time dinner rolls around. You need that snack to kind of bridge you. So healthy fats are super important. They're also very, very anti-inflammatory. So when you look at the omega-3 fatty acids that you can find in the cold water fish, you can also take them in supplements. And those supplements, let's say you take 2,000 milligrams of fish oil, have been found to be just as powerful as, let's say, Advil or Aleve, the nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory medications, at decreasing inflammation and at alleviating joint pain. So we look to food first. We always look to food as the means to heal, whether it's healing the belly fat you have around your midsection, or whether it's to healing your chronic pain.
That's amazing. Isn't that amazing? I mean, just putting some avocado oil on your salad. I mean, what a simple solution that is. I take fish oil every day, and I just, can't live without it,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I make myself a great shake in the morning, and today I'm actually at a hotel, and I'm actually quite far from the kitchen of the hotel, so I just did a shake with some water. And I was nowhere as near satiated as I normally was, and I'm like, you know what? I'm missing some coconut oil, or I'm missing some coconut milk, or I'm missing the almond milk that bring those healthy fats into the shake in the morning. So it's a really great way to start the day.
That's cool. Yep, I have a smoothie every day as well. Tell me about dairy. Let's talk about dairy and its connection to pain.
Yeah, so when people come to me and they say, is it my diet? What should I be doing? There are actually 3 things that I talk about first and foremost, and they are gluten, dairy, and sugar. Now, I guess let's start with gluten, and we'll move into the dairy. So gluten is the one thing that can unlock the signal to what's called leaky gut. And when you have a leaky gut, you're letting inflammation into your body. You're letting undigested proteins or food particles into your body. Oftentimes, you're letting in viruses or bacteria or different kinds of fungus into your body. So to have leaky gut, you need to have something that unlocks or creates that, opens the door, so to speak, in your gut for your gut to become leaky. And gluten is oftentimes that one thing. So first, when people come to me, the first strategy they get is a gluten-free diet. Above everything else, it's going 100% gluten-free for at least 3 weeks and seeing how you feel. Now, what's interesting about dairy is that there are proteins in dairy, and the protein in dairy that's most popular is called casein. And the body can recognize that casein protein as very similar to gluten. So some people may say, I've been on a gluten-free diet and I feel better, like my pain's gone from an 8 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10, but I'd still like to go further. Obviously, I'd like to be 0 out of 10 pain. So what can I do? So I say, well, the next step is let's look at dairy. Let's take dairy out of the diet, and let's see if that dairy and if we can rid the body of that 100% free, where those 2 molecules look very similar to the body. So taking them out can help leaky gut. It can also help decrease inflammation.
Let me interrupt you 1 second. Our connection got lost for just a second. So just a couple sentences back, if you could start over about talking about taking dairy out.
Sure. The reason why we take dairy out of the diet is because for those who've been successful on a gluten-free diet, that gluten molecule often looks like the casein molecule, which is found in dairy. So by taking dairy out, oftentimes it's another signal the body has to decrease that inflammation. So in the body, when we look at leaky gut, the first thing to go is gluten. And the second thing to go would be that dairy molecule, that casein molecule found in dairy.
Okay, and there was one third thing, wasn't there? To take
Yeah,
out?
the third thing after that would be sugar.
Oh, but of course.
Is it-
Let's talk about sugar.
it's always the sweet spot that we try to point our patients toward. But with sugar, obviously you're looking at really empty calories that have no nutritional value, which can put that belly fat back in your body. Sugar is also extremely pro-inflammatory. So as your blood sugar raises, insulin raises. And when insulin raises, inflammation raises in your body. So we try to keep that inflammatory response down as low as possible. And pulling sugar out of your diet 100% is really the way to do it.
Yeah, and how do you, for your emotional eating patients who are like, hell no, I'm not doing that. How do you coax them along and get them on the road towards better eating?
Well, I do allow them a little bit of organic stevia. So they can use either the powdered version
Love
or
stevia.
they can use the powdered version. They could use a little bit of the liquid version. Just 1 or 2 drops is incredible, and it can really do wonders. So, that's what I find works best for people, is to give them a healthy substitute. But even then, people start to say, do I really need all this sweetness in my food? And they start to back themselves off, and they start to realize, wow, I was adding a lot of sugar to my food personally, as well as when I started to read labels, I had no idea that even things I thought had no sugar at all actually have sugar on them. So, those are things like when you buy the almonds, in the package, you think, well, they're just nuts. And then you start to read the package, those almonds are glazed with oftentimes sugar, high fructose corn syrup, even, coconut sugar, which people think are healthy, still can have upwards of 14 grams of sugar. And, a gram is like a little pile of sugar that you can kind of place on the table. When you lay out 14 grams on the table and you start to look at it, you say, wow, those nuts I had, although they had maybe high in protein and had some healthy fats in them, also came with a lot of sugar.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so vital. And I mean, I like what you're saying about the fact of cutting it out. As much as people hate to hear that, the fact is, I mean, for emotional eaters, and I being one of them, a little bit of sugar is pretty much torture, because I'm a total sugar addict. So if I have a little, I'm wanting more, so it's actually, plus stevia doesn't satisfy people if they're eating sugar as well. Like they're like, oh, it doesn't taste as good as sugar. Well, no kidding. But if you cut the sugar out, it does taste better. Then it's all you have, then you appreciate the sweetness of it. So it's really just a matter of, what you're eating with it, or if you're actually cutting sugar out. So it's so important.
The other aspect of it, the emotional eaters, what I see in my practice is that oftentimes when pain increases, so I make my patients very aware, okay, the definition of pain is both a sensory and an emotional response. So when you feel pain, I tell patients to just pause for a minute and to think back, let's say an hour to 12 hours, and think about what emotion came up in your day or in your life that could be linked to that pain. So that could be fear, it could be guilt, it could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be frustration. And once they start to tap into, okay, I was angry at my boss, and from that anger, my neck pain started, and then I alleviated all that with a Frappuccino and a glazed donut. And I say, okay, next time that pain arises, just pause, focus on your breath, and take a couple deep breaths and focus on where you are. Think back to the emotion you had. And then say, okay, my pain is not linked to my posture, the way I'm sitting, or the fact that I have arthritis. My pain is actually linked to this emotion of anger that I had toward my boss. And then develop some kind of strategy to either release that anger or unleash the anger, whatever it is that you have to do. But they're all very simple cognitive behavioral strategies we can use that can focus on the actual emotion. And once you release that emotion, the pain goes away, the fear, the frustration, the anger goes away, as well as a desire for that sweet, sugary, salty food.
Amen. I love that. I love that you're talking to your patients about that. Oh my goodness. If all doctors in the world would do that, how different our world would be. That's just beautiful, because that's really the name of the game, feeling our way through it, realizing we're not going to die from those strong emotions, that they pass. They absolutely pass, and we can get through them. So I appreciate you saying that. That's just great. Talk to me about some of the other things people can do when they do have pain that are in your book that people really get benefit from.
Yeah, so the first thing is I want everyone to know that pain is both a sensory and an emotional experience. And I want to clearly define what pain is for people. So first, pain is about protection. And there's a difference between acute pain versus chronic pain. And obviously, the patients I work with are those who have chronic pain. So acute pain, we know well. That's the kind of pain you have when you fall and you scrape your knee and you have a little cut or a boo-boo, or when you twist your ankle in the high-heeled shoe and you sprain your ankle, or let's say you fall and you fracture your arm. That's acute pain. And your body produces pain because it's telling you that tissue is injured, and it means it's time to rest. It's time to protect the arm. So put the arm in a cast, or if you sprain an ankle, obviously you're not going to be running that day. And if you have a boo-boo, obviously you put a little Band-Aid on it, and that boo-boo heals within 10 days. The interesting thing about an acute injury is that there's tissue trauma. There's some kind of tissue injury. And your body has a natural process, a natural inflammatory process to heal that tissue. And all healing occurs typically within a 3-month period of time. So if it's a little boo-boo, it heals within that 10-day period of time. If it's a fractured arm, it usually heals within 8 weeks. Every injury, no matter what it is, heals within 12 weeks. If your pain continues beyond that 12-week period of time, it's what's defined as chronic pain. And with chronic pain, we look less toward the tissue, so a lot less toward the actual tissue itself or the joint, let's say, or the muscle. And we look to kind of the brain and the nervous system, and we say, okay, what is keeping the brain in this harm alarm phase? So what's keeping the brain in this pain phase, basically? Is there another signal in my life that's causing danger? So oftentimes when people are injured, let's say they're in a car accident and they have whiplash, and yeah, they may hurt some tissue in their neck, but those muscles and ligaments will heal within 12 weeks. But what are the other signs? What are the other danger signals that happen with that incident, with that accident? So are you anxious that you're injured and you may miss work? Are you angry at this other person that your car was totaled and now you have to pay for a new car? Are you anxious that you're scared now you're not going to be able to drive your kids to and from school every day because you're scared you're going to be another accident? So all those things, and oftentimes these are emotions that become part of someone's overall pain experience. So when I start working with someone on chronic pain, yes, movement may be a big part of it, and nutrition may be a big part of it, but ultimately it's looking at the entire experience and figuring out, okay, what else is going on in the brain and the nervous system that's keeping someone in this state of pain, in this kind of harm alarm phase.
That's amazing. Again, thank you. Thank you. That's so cool. We're marrying our emotional and our physical selves. That's just so great. Talk a little bit, if you will, about the ketogenic diet and why that's so important to healing.
Yeah, the ketogenic diet is a wonderful diet. And what happens with chronic pain is there's something called central sensitization. So that means certain parts of your brain become very alert or hyper alert to what's going on. And we've seen this actually in other types of diseases. We've actually seen this in those who have a seizure disorder. And kids who have seizure disorders, they put them on a very high-fat diet, and it tends to quiet down the brain and the nervous system because the brain loves fat. The nervous system loves fat. So oftentimes those with chronic pain, those who have failed, let's say, a basic Mediterranean diet, or they failed an elimination diet, then the next thing I turn to is a ketogenic diet, which is a very high-fat diet, very low carbohydrate diet, moderate protein. And that helps to, of course, decrease inflammation, but also helps this central sensitization, or this kind of hyper alert state of the nervous system. It helps quiet that down in many types of patients.
That's fascinating. Wow. Okay. And then do you, I know that's not the only diet you have in your book. Talk about the other. Is there one other, or are those just the two I saw?
Yeah, so the basic one is a basic elimination diet where we take away 5 foods. Mm-hmm. So we take away gluten, dairy, sugar, eggs, and GMOs. So those come out first. We see how you do, how you feel. Keep you on that for about 3 to 4 weeks. And then if that doesn't work, then we shift you toward a ketogenic diet. And like I said before, that ketogenic diet is less about the inflammation, but more about how can we calm the nervous system naturally with these healthy fats.
Okay, that's so interesting. That makes a lot of sense. And regarding carbs and grains, are these contributors to inflammation and pain?
Yeah, they can be. That's why in the ketogenic diet, we take out all grains, we take out all legumes, we take out all sugar, of course. Most patients can have a very small amount, let's say a teaspoon or a tablespoon of a high fiber carbohydrate, like maybe beets or kale or broccoli or spinach or cauliflower. And that depends a little bit also on your activity level. If you're doing more activity, you can tolerate a little bit more. If you're not active, then obviously less. But yes, we go on a very no grain, no legume, no sugar. The only carbohydrates that are allowed in are those that are very high in fiber.
And why is that? Why do those high carbs or strong dense carbs, why do they have such an effect on the body?
Well, if something is very dense in carbohydrates, basically it's looked at as sugar. Your body will convert those carbohydrates to sugar very, very rapidly in the bloodstream. And again, we look back to that insulin response, that increasing inflammation. And oftentimes when you're eating those types of densely carbohydrate diets, you have no fat in your diet. So we're really shifting the kind of normal American diet from one of high carbohydrate, low fat to one of high fat, low carbohydrate.
Okay. There you go. I appreciate your explanation. That's super helpful. Yeah. Anything else that, I really want people to get this book. If you have any pain, people are tuning in here. If you have any pain and you've been struggling for a while, you absolutely must get this book because it really does lay it out there. And there's a link in the show notes where you can do that. There's also a quiz. So tell us about the quiz that you're offering.
Sure. I have a great simple quiz for people. It's called the Pain Quiz. So they can go to www.thepainquiz.com. And it's a simple 10-question quiz where you can find out what the root cause of your pain is, whether it's due to diet and inflammation, whether it's due to a sedentary lifestyle, whether it's due to stress or what I call the brain in pain. So if you go there and take the pain quiz, you can figure out what the root cause of your pain is and discover the way to heal it.
That's beautiful. Well, you're grand central for healing pain. So thank you for doing what you do and for all the solutions you offer and the relief that you offer people. My goodness, it's so awful to be in pain. It's just the pits,
Yeah, we have, about 100 million Americans struggle with chronic pain. It's our largest chronic disease. And right now we have, the United States of America consumes 80% of the world's opioids. So my platform and my mission really is educating people on the natural strategies you can use to reset your body and your brain to decrease pain in your life. And I tell people all the time that pain-free is possible. So check out the Pain Quiz at thepainquiz.com.
Oh, I'll tell you my own personal anecdote around this. It happened yesterday. I got an infection in my mouth, just in front of a tooth. It started, when I was flossing my teeth a couple days ago, it was sore, but I didn't pay much attention. And then it got worse and worse till yesterday. It was I was gargling with salt, swishing with salt water, hoping that would help. And it didn't help. And it was so inflamed. Really inflamed. And it hurt like crazy. It hurt so much. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to have an antibiotic. And of course I don't want that. And I mentioned it to my husband and what he did is, we have a holistic dentist who's super awesome. And she had recommended to him when he had infection to use a water pick with vitamin C, vitamin C in the water, and use this water jet thing. And so he set me up last night and I literally did that. I water jetted my sore, which I have to tell you was so freaking painful. It was so painful. I was literally, and I knew the more it hurt, the more I was getting in under the infection. But it was torture. And so I literally water picked right on the sore and I was dying. I was making all kinds of noises. But I woke up this morning and it is so much better. I can't even, it's miraculous. I can't even believe it. And it's on its way to healing. And I'll do it again today just to make sure, I continue it. But I mean, there you go. It's just there are so many natural solutions out there. We don't have to resort to medications or antibiotics that kill our gut, you know?
That's right. And the ultimate, what you did there is you recognized that your body was telling you that you're in pain for a reason because you had an infection there and you treated it and it went away. So often I tell people, don't ignore your pain. There are many ways to address your pain naturally and heal it naturally, and that's what my book, Heal Your Pain, is about. And it's a ton of strategies for people, no matter what the cause of your pain is, whether it's autoimmune disease, whether you have pain from a childhood trauma. There's so many strategies in there for you.
Great. And do you cover fibromyalgia as well? Because I just got an email from somebody about that.
I do. Fibromyalgia is one of the most popular causes of pain. I really cover it in depth, actually, in a section in my book called The Brain in Pain.
Okay.
So those with fibromyalgia have that central sensitization syndrome, where they have this priming of the nervous system where pain continues. So please check out my book, Heal Your Pain Now, to tell you all about it.
Okay, thank goodness, because my friend just emailed me about her daughter, and it's literally, she's been to so many doctors, and unfortunately, I can't even believe it, in 2017, doctors are still acting like it's in your head, I mean, that's just really disconcerting. So I'll definitely recommend she get your book. There's one more question I'm going to ask, and I ask it of all my guests, and that is, you take a second if you want to consider your answer, but the question is, what is your deepest hunger?
Oh, it's a brilliant question. Well, I would say my deepest hunger is to turn around our chronic pain epidemic so that we don't have this growing epidemic of people who cannot live a vital life from chronic pain. So my deepest hunger really is to help those who have chronic pain heal it naturally and to reverse that number so that each year our number goes from 100 million to 90 million to 50 million to eventually zero. That's my deepest hunger.
Beautiful. And you're doing everything you can to make that happen. So thank you so much, Dr. Joe, for your wonderful work and your book and your mission and you being you. You're just such a sweetheart and you've got a big heart. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Tricia. It's been great being with you today.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this show and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.